The unthinkable has happened. Twitter is no longer a monolith. It has a new and exciting rival called Threads. Yes, we had plenty of social media platforms before, but there was only one Twitter. Today, that has changed. Threads is run by Mark Zuckerberg's Meta. It looks like this, sort of a cross between Instagram and Twitter. You need an Instagram account to log in, but the app itself is a standalone one. You'll find Firstpost there. Check it out. And how's the app doing? Well, so far so good. Zuckerberg was heavily involved in the first few hours after the launch. He says 10 million people have signed on. That was then. Since then, the numbers have increased. How does this stack up to Twitter? Well, they have close to 400 million active users. But don't forget, Twitter is almost 16 years old. And now to some important questions. What's the point of this app? Why have they launched it now? Should Elon Musk be worried? And more importantly, should you be worried? Let's deal with the first question first. What is the point of Threads? Well, Meta says this is an app for sharing with text. You want real-time updates? Come to Threads. Public conversations? Again, come to Threads. Now, this is very similar to what Twitter does. In fact, it's identical. But there are some differences in features. Like Twitter supports 10,000 characters, Threads only 500. Twitter Blue now supports 2-hour-long videos, and Threads just short 5-minute ones. Now to the second question. Why now? Why have they launched it now? Because Twitter is going through a really tough time. There are lawsuits and fines around the world, and there is Elon Musk. Not everyone is happy with his policies. This week, he decided to limit the number of tweets you can see. Unverified accounts can only see 600 posts per day. New accounts, just 300 tweets in a day. In other words, you cannot doom scroll forever. Musk has also decided to put TweetDeck behind a paywall. His end goal is this, to turn Twitter into a paid service. Beyond all this, you also have the political issues. Elon Musk has brought back all the banned Twitter accounts, the likes of Donald Trump and Jordan Peterson. So those on the left side of the political spectrum are unhappy. They say Twitter is a toxic place, as if it wasn't before. But either way, this is what they say, and this is where things stand. And Instagram's top boss has been watching all of this. He says Twitter's volatility has opened a window for them. Their own executives are not shying away from the comparisons, the comparison between Twitter and Threads. Some are calling it Twitter, but sanely run. Well, it's just begun. Also, Mark Zuckerberg needed something new. He was worth $140 billion in 2021, and now just over $67 billion. His metaverse strategy had backfired badly. So this is the new bet. Which brings us to question number 3. Should Elon Musk be worried? Well, from the looks of it, yes. He paid $44 billion to buy Twitter. Back then, it had a monopoly on public conversations, but it doesn't anymore. Plus, the idea of linking Threads and Instagram is a good one. I mentioned that Twitter has 400 million users. Guess how many users Instagram has? 2.3 billion active monthly users. So Threads doesn't have to go around hunting for users. There is already a big pool available. Social media analysts say it could cross Twitter in the blink of an eye.
I think Threads is going to pose a huge threat to Twitter because it's coming from the Meta and Instagram family of apps. Instagram has 2 billion users compared to around 250 million of Twitter, so it's about 10 times bigger already. So if only 1 in 10 Instagram users tries using Threads, it's overtaken Twitter in the blink of an eye.
So Elon Musk has plenty of reasons to be wary. And this is clearly a personal battle. It's not just Threads versus Twitter, it's also Zuckerberg versus Musk. Both men agreed to fight inside a cage last month. That may not happen. But this digital battle is equally entertaining, and it's happening. Musk hasn't said much today. One Twitter user said that Threads has copied Twitter's interface. Musk posted a laughing smiley below that. But beyond that, nothing. Zuckerberg, meanwhile, is taunting Musk. His last post on Twitter was in the year 2012. But today he tweeted again, this famous meme of 2 identical Spider-Mans. So to answer my question, yes, Elon Musk should be worried. And now to the final question. Should you be worried? I think we crossed that bridge in the last decade. We should have been worried then. We should be worried now. On this show, we always talk about geopolitical rivalries, India versus China, China versus the US. All of that pales in comparison to big tech. These companies are worth billions of dollars. Some of them are bigger than national GDPs. Around 32% of the world population is on Instagram, 32%. Almost every world leader is on Twitter. These companies know all about your personality and your choices. And some of it is harmless, yes, like your music taste or the kind of food you like. But some of it is downright dangerous. Facebook knows whether you're pro-abortion or anti-abortion. It knows whether you believe in climate change or not, whether you support radical ideologies or not. That's a lot of power for anyone, especially private companies. If Elon Musk wants to, he can flood Twitter with one type of content, say about climate change. If Zuckerberg wants to, he can flood Threads with another type of content, say systemic racism. And these companies have been known to do this. They've done it before. Remember the Cambridge Analytica case? They collected personal data from millions of Facebook users, and this data was used for political advertising. Same with Twitter. It's been accused of bolstering hate speech. So let's not get carried away with these cage fights and billionaire rivalries, because these men are gathering unimaginable power. Cambridge Analytica was in the 2010s. Today, we are even more addicted to social media. These are bigger beasts. So there's no saying what the outcome will be. So what should you be doing? Well, at this point, there's very little that you can. Abstaining from social media seems pointless. So we're better off asking governments to do something. They know how powerful big tech companies are. They also know how dangerous they can be, but vested interests keep them from taking action. Some leaders like Elon Musk's so-called free speech absolutism. Others like that Zuckerberg is taking on Elon Musk. So there's no saying how things will evolve in the next couple of weeks. A lot depends on word of mouth. And if there are no glitches or setbacks, Threads could pose a big challenge to Twitter. So Elon Musk has some thinking to do. And we're not done with social media just yet. I have a list for you. These are the biggest social media platforms in the world. You can see which countries they belong to. The top 4 are American: Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, WhatsApp. Then comes WeChat and TikTok. Both of these are based in China. You also have Facebook Messenger, Snapchat, and Telegram. So these are all American or Chinese. Now let me show you another list. It shows the number of social media users in each country. China is at number 1. They have around 1 billion users. India is at number 2. We have close to 755 million users. Then comes the US, Indonesia, Brazil, Russia, and Japan. Now, if you contrast these two lists, there's a story. The US and China have large numbers of social media users, so they also have a lot of homegrown social media platforms. But India doesn't. We are number 2 in market size, but not even a single Indian platform makes it to the top league. Why is that? And to be clear, Indian social media platforms do exist, like ShareChat, based in Bengaluru, or Koo, which was supposed to rival Twitter. But each of them has a different problem. Koo doesn't have enough users. They had around 9 million users in July 2022. But by January this year, it was down to 4 million. So it's losing traction. ShareChat is doing better on user count. They claim to have 180 million active monthly users, but they're not profitable. ShareChat is burning money. They fired 20% of their staff in January this year, so user count alone may not be enough. You need to check multiple boxes. The question is, why haven't Indian companies been able to do that? And we'll get to that question. But first, let's also look at India's social media landscape. Around 52% of the population in India has internet, 52%. Every month, there are 470 million active users. They spend around 2.6 hours on social media. They use around 8 social media platforms, so the potential is very much there. By the next decade, India will be the second largest market for social media advertising. China will be the first. That is the projection. Why then have Indian platforms not emerged or taken off? We can think of 4 major reasons. Number 1, we are a late entry into the market. The social media boom was in the late 2000s. India completely missed that bus. We can still catch up. But for that, you need a revolutionary feature or addition. Like TikTok, it came up with short videos. WhatsApp came up with direct messaging. Twitter became a town hall. So far, Indian companies have failed to do that. Most of them have only replicated foreign social media platforms. So that's one reason. Number two is the brain drain. Don't think that Indians are not building social media companies. They are. But Indians are doing so in the Silicon Valley. Indian entrepreneurship is still work in progress. You can't have top talent working mostly for foreign companies. You need them to stay back and to innovate in India. Reason number three, the need for massive capital infusement. We're talking about a very busy space here. You're taking on the likes of Google, Facebook, Twitter. Is it possible? Yes, it is. But you will need hundreds of millions of dollars. Who will take that bet in such gloomy markets? Plus, big tech is like the ocean. The big fish eat the smaller ones. Think back to WhatsApp and Instagram. When they became a threat, Facebook just went ahead and bought them. We can't rule out similar things in India. We talked about ShareChat. Google has already invested some $300 million in that company. So money is the third reason. Reason number four, India's language barriers. American social media platforms use English. Chinese social media platforms use Mandarin. What language will Indian ones use? There is no exact data on English speakers in this country. But in 2012, a report said 10% of the population in India knows English, speaks English. Now, ideally, there would be an app that transcends language, maybe using AI or translators. No one in India developed such a platform. Guess who did? WhatsApp. You can now use WhatsApp in multiple Indian languages. And these are just four of the major reasons. I'm sure there are many more, smaller ones. In 2020, Indian tech firms had the perfect opportunity to go big. TikTok and other Chinese apps had been banned. Everyone was looking for an alternative, but none came. So Instagram took over the market. Right now, it's probably too late. Even if you innovate, there is no guarantee of success. If you do something different, Facebook can do it. In fact, they can do it better. This Threads platform is the best example of that. If something as established as Twitter can be challenged, what hope do new platforms have? Having said that, it's important to keep trying. We are in the middle of a very crucial decade. We don't know how things will pan out. So here's hoping there will soon be an Indian Twitter or Threads. So Pakistan may be worried about its own army, but Russia is concerned about a private army, the Wagner Group. We told you about their short-lived rebellion and how the Wagner chief was exiled to Belarus. As we speak, he happens to be in St. Petersburg in Russia. Not sure what he's doing there. But we can tell you what Moscow is doing. They're going after his troops, and that too in Syria. The Putin-Prigozhin fight may have started in Russia, but its new battleground is Syria, a country that has been in the grip of a civil war for more than a decade, but this one could be deadlier. You see, Wagner forces were everywhere. Syria, Sudan, Mali. They had a strong presence in West Asia and Africa. They still do. And all this while, they did Moscow's bidding. They kept a grip on troubled regions. They countered Western influence here. And Syria was one of their first operations abroad. It began in 2015. That's when Wagner deployed its mercenaries to Syria. They fought alongside Syrian forces. They also controlled oil and gas fields in Syria. Basically, Wagner helps President Bashar al-Assad. He keeps his power, and Russia gets influence in West Asia. This is the arrangement. But when Wagner launched a mutiny against Putin, Assad was jittery. Russia sent its diplomat to Damascus. They assured President Bashar al-Assad. On June 26, the Russian deputy foreign minister arrived in Damascus. This was an unscheduled visit. What did he want? He reportedly asked the Syrian government to not let Wagner fighters leave the country, and soon a crackdown began. Wagner offices were raided in 3 places in Syria: Damascus, Hama, and Deir ez-Zor. Their fighters were reportedly arrested. Reports say a prominent Wagner recruiter was also rounded up. His Russian translator was also arrested. Now, all of these were reports by Western and Arab media. What did Wagner say? Nothing officially, but on their Telegram channel, they denied the arrest of their fighters, although they did not deny the raids on their offices. So what exactly is Moscow's grand game plan here? Will it arrest Wagner fighters? Will it replace them with Russian forces? At this point, we don't know. Replacing Wagner fighters is not going to be easy. It will take time. So is the answer another private army? Well, after that mutiny, Moscow would be wary. Also, when the rebellion happened, a lot of countries condemned it. They expressed support for Putin. Guess who did not? Syria. No statement from them. After all, Assad depends on the Wagner forces. He could not have spoken against them. Wagner also has investments in Syria's oil and gas sectors. It has oil extraction contracts, even oil fields located north of Damascus. According to Russian media, 2 companies are controlled by Prigozhin. In 2018, these companies earned $20 million a month. So what happens to them now, the companies in the oil fields? Removing Wagner fighters would put them at risk. You see, Wagner fought the ISIS to capture them. They can't just be left without any protection. And Syria knows that. So does Russia. So going forward, 2 things could happen. 1, a power vacuum. If Moscow removes Wagner and cannot replace it, other players will enter. That means more instability and more fighting, which is bad. But the other scenario is far worse. Uncontrollable mercenary groups. The Wagner group can turn into a hydra-headed monster. You cut one head off, but 2 more will emerge. You remove Prigozhin, but not his men. And Wagner in West Asia becomes an independent branch, a mercenary group that no one really controls. It's hard to say what shape this will take, but whatever it is, we can tell you Russia's troubles are far from over. Now to West Asia, where Israel is in the grip of its worst domestic crisis. People are out on the streets by the thousands. It's the 27th week of protests. There is growing anger, and it's against Benjamin Netanyahu, Israel's longest-serving prime minister. Netanyahu wants to change the way the judiciary works. So he introduced judicial reforms. And that's what led to the protests in the first place. They started at the beginning of this year. Now we are in the month of July, nearly halfway through, and the protests in Israel are still on. Today, they had a high-profile addition. The police chief of Tel Aviv has resigned.
Unfortunately, for the first time in 3 decades of service, I encountered an absurd reality in which ensuring calm and order was not what was required of me, but precisely the opposite.
And why did he quit? Because of government meddling. He did not name anyone, but he said they wanted him to use excessive force against protesters, and that's something that he refused to do.
I could not meet the expectations of the ministerial echelon, which included breaking the rules, procedures, organizational order, and blatant interference in decision-making and operational discretion.
So no names, but no prizes for guessing who he was talking about. This man, Itamar Ben-Gvir. He's the national security minister. He's a hardliner. In the past, he's been convicted for incitement. Ben-Gvir joined Netanyahu's new coalition in the month of December. It was a move that alarmed many. When elected, Ben-Gvir wanted more control over the police. In March this year, he demanded tough action against the protesters. And now the police chief has resigned. Thousands took to the streets. They lit fires on a Tel Aviv highway.
I'm here today because I'm an Israeli who cares about democracy. I know that if the government decided to fire the head police officer of Tel Aviv only because he decided that it's legal to protest, I think this is one step further for Israel to be a non-democratic state.
Today is a special night because apparently the Minister of National Security, Homeland Security, whatever, fired the Chief of Tel Aviv Police for refusing to make sure that after every demonstration, the local main hospital is full of injured demonstrators. He refused to do that and got fired over the phone.
So what are these people angry about? Judicial reforms. Netanyahu thinks the courts in Israel are too powerful, so he wants to curb their powers. But critics say he's only trying to weaken the judiciary. And this is what the plan is. The parliament would be able to overturn court decisions. All you need is a simple majority in the Knesset. That's the Israeli parliament. And you can overturn a court order with a majority. Plus, the government will have a say in the appointment of judges. Why is that problematic? The government does appoint judges in other countries, like in the US. You see, Prime Minister Netanyahu faces court cases. He's on trial for corruption. And so this so-called reform could help him personally. The government can potentially manipulate the judicial system in Israel, which is why the people are upset. They're calling it an assault on democracy. So for the last 27 weeks, they've been protesting. The government remained adamant for a long time, but last week it offered a concession. Netanyahu dropped a key part of his plan, the part that said that the parliament can overturn court decisions. That has been removed. But it doesn't really help him. In fact, it puts him in an even more precarious position. And I'll explain why. Netanyahu won the last election, but he did not win a simple majority. Fun fact, no party in Israel has won a simple majority ever. They've always had a coalition government. But this one is a particularly messy coalition. Netanyahu is a right-wing leader. He had to rely on what's called the far right to get the numbers. They joined on one condition: implement judicial reform, reign in the courts. That's what they wanted. So that's what he tried to do. Now he's backtracking and they're angry. They think the prime minister is surrendering to the protesters. So the allies are upset. At the same time, the people are also upset. They want the entire reform chucked out. Benjamin Netanyahu is caught between a rock and a hard place. He can't ditch the far right. They're the ones holding his government together. Any more missteps and the house of cards will collapse. It could trigger Israel's 6th election in 4 years. On the other hand, he can't stop the protests. His Western allies are already calling him out, even his staunchest ally, the United States. It's unhappy. A raid in Jenin may have dominated the headlines for a few days, but he can't make the protests go away. Does this mean the end of the road for Netanyahu? Well, that's what many think. But remember, he's been prime minister for a long time. He's a shrewd politician, the proverbial cat with 9 lives. He's made comebacks before. The road ahead for him winds uphill, but it's definitely not the end yet. And now to the latest from Pakistan. It's a military with a country. And reports say this military will conduct no drills or war games this year. Not because they've suddenly had a change of heart, not because the force has become peaceful, but because they don't have a tank full. Pakistan is running short of fuel, so apparently their army had to cancel all drills till the end of this year. This is according to some military intelligence reports that have come out, and it's a reflection of the dire straits that Pakistan is in. They've just managed to get an IMF bailout, but it's hardly the end of their troubles. Here's a report.
An army needs to be ready to defend the nation. And that readiness comes from training, which is why militaries across the world hold drills, to keep soldiers alert and ready to handle any situation. But what happens when military readiness will cause more harm than good? When drills could end up bankrupting a nation? Case in point, Pakistan. It's running out of oil, so it has decided to not hold any military drills till the end of this year. This is according to a report from the Eurasian Times. It says Pakistan is trying to save fuel. And it makes sense. What kind of mileage can you expect from tanks and armored vehicles? Experts say one Pakistani T-80 tank consumes 2 liters per kilometer. And in military drills, dozens of tanks and other heavy vehicles conduct battlefield maneuvers. Obviously, crisis-hit Pakistan cannot afford that. Because remember, fuel imports are a huge part of Pakistan's economic crisis. The value of its currency has been falling for months now. The Pakistani rupee is going for almost 280 to the dollar right now. A year ago, it was about 210 to the dollar. So, as the currency tanks, imports become more expensive, and they keep draining Pakistan's foreign exchange reserves. To avoid a Sri Lanka-like situation where people waited hours in line for petrol and diesel, Pakistan needs to allocate its fuel wisely. It cannot afford to buy enough fuel for all the needs. So it must cut down somewhere. So it has cut down army drills, which is surprising because the army gets priority in Pakistan. It is, after all, an army with a country. It has been ruled by generals for half of its existence. So, how did the axe fall on this all-pervasive institution? There are a number of reasons, starting with the need for combat readiness. Look at Pakistan's neighbors, Taliban-controlled Afghanistan, Iron Brother China, and India. The Taliban are unlikely to invade. They have their own problems. China won't. It has already turned Pakistan into a colony. And India never invades. It has fought 4 wars with Pakistan. All of them were started by Pakistan. So Rawalpindi can rest assured that its eastern border is secure, which is why the military drills can be stopped. Fuel can be saved. Also, live ammunition. It's fired during drills and it costs money. So, by stopping the drills, Pakistan will be saving millions. And this isn't the first time they're doing it. Reports say they did the same last year. The military was observing dry Fridays. Dry of a different sort. Military vehicles were parked on Fridays to save on fuel. Rawalpindi also returned over $10 million to the government. This money was meant to purchase equipment. They also let the government slash the defense budget by about a fifth last year. That sounds impressive until you see that even after the cut, the military got about 16% of the entire budget. You can't really expect much more from Pakistan's bloated military. So even the cancellation of drills is a cause for celebration in Pakistan.
The new Barbie movie is about to release. You can see it on the 21st of July, except if you're living in Vietnam or the Philippines. Vietnam has already banned the movie. The Philippines is considering it. The question is why? Why do these countries have a problem with a movie on dolls? The answer is maps. Barbie has one scene which depicts a controversial map. It shows the contested South China Sea as part of China. We've told you about the history of this water body. China claims around 90% of it. But an international court has rubbished their claim. Other countries have laid claim to the South China Sea, countries like Vietnam, the Philippines, and Malaysia. It's a very sensitive issue for these countries. Now, in the last decade, China has increased military patrols in the region. They're also building artificial islands. Simply put, it's a political tinderbox. But Barbie has decided to light a matchstick. Their controversial map has led to a ban in Vietnam, and reports say the Philippines could do the same. And what are the movie producers saying? Well, Barbie is produced by Warner Brothers. So far, they've been silent, like the doll. And banning things we know is a touchy subject. Many say it's actually counterproductive. But in this case, there is a larger story, a story about how Hollywood has surrendered to China. And the reason is quite simple. It's money. In 2020, China became the largest box office in the world. They took over North America. China's total revenue was $3 billion. North America's was $2 billion. And this did not happen overnight. It was a gradual rise that happened over 2 decades. So Hollywood was in a tight spot. For starters, their budgets kept going up. People are not keen on low-budget movies nowadays. They want to see big stars and big action. But high-budget movies also have a downside. You have to earn a lot more to make enough profits. Meaning, you can't just rely on the North American box office. You must be a blockbuster in China too. Just one problem though. Chinese censors are brutal. You can't show anything on Xinjiang or Uyghurs. Nothing on Tibet or Hong Kong. Nothing on homosexuality or LGBTQ either. And Hollywood played along. In fact, I have some examples for you. In 2016, the first Doctor Strange movie came out. It was based on the Marvel comics. Now, the comics showed the main character having a Tibetan mentor. But in the movie, it was a Celtic mentor. No prizes for guessing why. The movie made around 20% of its money from China. So job done. Another example is World War Z starring Brad Pitt. It's a zombie movie. The first cut showed China as the source of the outbreak. The last cut doesn't mention a source at all. Red Dawn was released in the year 2012. It shows an invasion into the United States. The shooting was done with Chinese flags. But in post-production, they became North Korean. That's the magic of computers and fear. Iron Man 3 also appeased Chinese censors. The movie's villain was called the Mandarin. He was supposed to be of Chinese ethnic origin, but in the movie, it's played by a white actor. These are not some random movies from obscure production houses. These are the biggest franchisees out there. Fast and Furious is another example. One of their movies cast wrestler John Cena as the villain. During the promotions, he called Taiwan a country. But days later, he issued a public apology, and that too in Mandarin language. I could give you more examples, but you get the point. Fear is driving Hollywood, the fear of losing the Chinese market. And do you know what's worse? This is self-imposed censorship. It's normal for countries to demand changes to foreign films. It happens all the time. Even India has sought such changes. But in China's case, the censors don't even have to ask. Most of these changes are made voluntarily by movie houses. It tells you what the equation is. The Americans love to call Hollywood their soft power export. And yes, the industry is unrivaled. But the Hollywood of today is not the Hollywood of the last century. It is not serving American interests. It is serving Chinese interests. Some of you may ask, why is that a problem? After all, is it not about making money? Well, yes, it is. But then you must be consistent. You talk about LGBTQ rights and representation at the Oscars, but in China, you remove all such references. That's what Hollywood is doing now. In 2019, a movie called Bohemian Rhapsody was released. It was Freddie Mercury's biopic. In the Chinese release, there is no mention of his sexuality. How about that for activism? And with Barbie, it's a double blow. Both the doll and the industry are supposed to be American flagships. But one is now made in China, and the other is made for China. And now it's time for Vantage Shots, images that tell the story. An exciting day at a US theme park in Wisconsin turned sour. A roller coaster ride malfunctioned. 8 passengers were suspended upside down for hours. And speaking of amusement parks, a popular roller coaster in North Carolina was closed after a viral video showed its support pillar with a crack. An upcoming venue in Las Vegas called Sphere was put on trial. It is being hailed as the world's largest spherical structure. Spain kicked off the historical Bull Run Festival of San Fermin with thousands of attendees. And finally, what makes the 6th of July significant? We are taking you back in history to the year 1942, when 13-year-old Anne Frank went into hiding in Amsterdam to escape the Nazis. Today, she's world-renowned for writing The Diary of Anne Frank. We're leaving you with these images. Thanks for watching.
Interesting. Can't see him. So that guy's up there just talking to the people, trying to keep him calm. Little steel thing. That's kind of like a safety switch that stopped. Make sure he's okay. Yeah.